Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Lee Reese. On behalf of United Ostomy Associations of America, I would like to welcome you to Ostomy Academy. Ostomy Academy is a free online comprehensive educational seminar series that brings trusted ostomy information to all members of the ostomy community. Top experts, medical professionals, and established and experienced ostomates will bring a new focus on series of quality of life topics in each presentation. You can catch recordings of our previous broadcasts of Ostomy Academy and today's broadcast on our website, ostomy.org. UOAA is proud to broadcast this special edition of Ostomy Academy, Cultural Influences on Ostomy Life, celebrating World Ostomy Day. Thanks to our sponsor, Hollister, and to our community partners, South Asian IBD Alliance, Cheeky Charity, and Color of Gastrointestinal Illnesses. The International Ostomy Association announces the theme of World Ostomy Day, and it is held every three years on the first Saturday of October. This year's theme is Invisible Disabilities, Visible Support, the global unity of ostomates, bringing light to uncover the invisible ostomy and create visible support, fostering conversation, global awareness, and ensuring equity for our communities, both locally and globally. We're going to put a link to the chat of some of the World Ostomy Day events that we're having. And we're kicking it off today with this program. So this is the first thing that we're doing for World Ostomy Day, and we're so glad that you have joined us. As we come together to celebrate World Ostomy Day, Ostomy Academy wants to spotlight stories of cultural influence on ostomy life to better promote understanding and awareness. Ostomy surgery and conditions like cancer and IBD can have huge stigma. And in today's conversation, we're going to address the unique challenges people face within their communities. So based on ethnicity and culture, sexual orientation, or gender. And we're going to explore the support systems that can help. We are so glad, again, that you are here, whether you're joining us live or on the recording. We're going to share today, learn, and connect. So let's go ahead and get started with our fabulous panel. We have representatives from our community partnering organizations, Dr. Neilanjan Nandi, DeAndre Hardy, Tina Aswani-Omprakash, Daniel Garza, and Ashley Turner. Welcome, everyone. All right, we're going to start off by having you each introduce yourselves. So Daniel, I would love to start with you, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. It is just an honor to be in these boxes with such great people to tell our story. I feel like the Brady Bunch here. But my name is Daniel G. Garza. I'm in Laguna Beach, California. I work as the Director of Advocacy in HIV, anal cancer, and HPV for Cheeky Charity. We're a virtual support system for people going through colorectal and anal cancer. And of course, we introduce ostomies into the conversation. I've been an advocate for about 25 years, starting in HIV, anal cancer, and mental health. Primarily, I work with the LGBT community and the Latinos, and such an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Glad to have you. And Ashley, we're going to go to you next.
So happy new day, everyone. My name is Ashley Turner. I am the curator and founder of Shit Happens, which stands for Sometimes Hardships Inspire Others. See how that works, right? I am also an ambassador for Koji. I have had my ostomy for 8 years now, but it will be my 9th World Ostomy Day coming up. Got my ostomy the same year I celebrated my first World Ostomy Awareness Day. I am also a caregiver to a dog that has IBD. So both my dog and I both have Crohn's disease, right? Really amazing. And I am so happy to be here with all of you guys.
Thank you, Ashley. JD loves the name of your organization, so you got a shout out on that. All right, we're going to go to DeAndre next. Welcome, DeAndre.
Hi, everyone. I'm DeAndre Hardy. I live in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I am an ambassador for Koji, also the creator of the Scene Society, which connects career, business, and chronic illness to maximize employability for people living with invisible chronic illnesses and disabilities. I have been a Crohn's patient for 26 years. I was diagnosed when I was 12, and I had an ileostomy placed in 2013. So I'm in my 12th year as an ostomate. So happy to be here, and great to be in good company with some great advocates.
Wonderful. Welcome. Dr. Nandi, we'll cut to you.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Neilanjan Nandi. I'm an IBD-ologist. I am the clinical director of the Penn IBD program and co-section head. I also happen to be the board chair of the South Asian IBD Alliance, or SAIA. My father had Crohn's. I had family members who've had IBD, and I've been blessed that for the last 16 to 18 years, I've been able to take care of patients with Crohn's and colitis. And truly, I cannot speak to the effect or impact that ostomies have had on my patients to reclaim their lives and take control. And so for me, it's a privilege to sit here in Brady Bunch or Hollywood Squares with these wonderful patient advocates and promote the cause and hope that more patients feel more comfortable going through the experience of having an ostomy.
Wonderful. And Dr. Nandi's been on our program before. He's had an excellent program on sexuality and intimacy you can check out in our archive on ostomy.org. So thanks for joining us again. You're our second time. I love it.
Lucky.
Tina, we'll cut to you now. Oh, Tina, you're muted. There you go.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tina Aswani-Omprakash. I'm an IBD patient advocate, living with Crohn's disease and an ostomy for many, many years now, the better part of 20 years for IBD, and just about 17 years on and off. This is my fourth ostomy due to a lot of complications from Crohn's disease, perianal fistulizing Crohn's in particular. I have the honor of working with Dr. Nandi on South Asian IBD Alliance as the Chief Executive Officer of the organization. And I am also on the Patient Advisory Board for the United Ostomy Associations of America. I'm really, really thrilled to be here with such fabulous patient advocates, as well as Dr. Nandi and the UOAA here today. And I think this is just such a wonderful topic for us to be talking about. Happy World Ostomy Day, everyone. Sport your t-shirts today, tomorrow.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So Dr. Nandi, before we dive into our panelist stories, can you just give us a little brief summary of what is an ostomy and the different types of ostomies?
Absolutely. So for those of you who are new, just tuning in, you're a caregiver, you're a patient who might be entertaining an ostomy, there's different types of ostomies. Ultimately, all ostomies, regardless of the type, are trying to take waste and put it into a different conduit. So there's three major types of ostomies. There is a ileostomy, colostomy, and urostomy. What's the difference? Urostomy helps drain urine produced by the kidneys into a bag. And ileostomy and colostomy, the intestinal tract is one continuous tube. If we divide it at the end of the small intestine, that's called an ileostomy. If we do it in the colon, we call that a colostomy. So these are the three different types of ostomies. However, they behave a little bit differently in terms of what's coming out. Obviously, urine versus stool. Liquid if it's ileostomy, more solid if it's a colostomy. And they're used in different types of conditions in different clinical scenarios. So without getting too complicated, those are the basics of the three major different types of ostomies.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and you can check out ostomy.org, of course, for more ostomy information on different types of ostomies. Tina, let's go back to you. You're going to start us off. I first found you from an article that you wrote, UOAA's column in the Wound Management and Prevention Journal. We're going to put a link to that article. It was about destigmatizing ostomy surgery, and you told a personal story of the cultural difference that you faced while undergoing ostomy surgery. So to quote you, you said, "In my experience, the biggest barriers to ostomy surgery were cultural. It felt to me as if my family's concerns were never addressed or understood by the healthcare professionals I encountered. So I would love for you to start us off in this deep dive and tell us a little bit more about your journey and kind of how that intersected your cultural identity.
Thanks so much, Amy Lee. It has been, a real challenge for me to open up and talk about this. I didn't even have the vocabulary for what was happening, and sort of over years of therapy had attributed it to cultural stigma. So I know many of us go through, a lot of psychosocial challenges with accepting the ostomy. It's different, right? And it feels different. It doesn't feel quote unquote normal as we might think. And I was facing all of that, yes. But on top of that, I was facing a lot of pressures from my family, as well as extended family and, extended family friend circles saying, oh my God, you're 24, you need an ostomy, you need a bag? Tina, no one's going to marry you. And forget about marriage. How are you going to function in society? People are going to look down on you. They're going to look down on your family. This is, there's a word in Hindi, it's like chi, it means discussing, this is foul. And, it was really, really hurtful to hear those things and to hear that, it was sort of attributed with when women are on their period, they should not enter the kitchen, they should not enter, a house of worship. It was sort of linked to that, except, an ostomy becomes oftentimes permanent, not always. And so I was almost, kind of convinced to go for J-pouch surgery rather than keep an ostomy and just do this temporarily. There was a lot of, sort of stigmas and, prejudices and biases against the ostomy and fear, really. And one of the reasons why I do this work today is because I don't want that fear and stigma to continue to persist in our community or even in other communities, because the ostomy has really given me my life back. It's given me the ability to do this work, for instance, to, travel for SAIA or to travel for fun, to enjoy my life again. And I just think that there's so many misunderstandings about the ostomy. And that's why I think it's so important that we're doing this talk today. I'm really looking forward to hearing from my patient advocacy colleagues.
Yes, I agree. Max, one of our viewers said, cultural stigma definitely plays such a huge role in care. You named it so well, Tina. So way to start us off. Very important, like you said, to have the vocabulary, to even start this discussion. So I'm so proud of us all for joining today, and all of our viewers that are here and the ones watching on the recording. This is good stuff. DeAndre, we'll have you go next and sort of add your 2 cents, if you will, on your experience.
Yes, thank you. And Tina, thank you for opening that up and naming so many important pieces. First, I want to name that I'm speaking from a Black woman in America. So I'm living in America. I identify as a Black woman. I also grew up on a military base. So I'm from Fort Hood, Texas. It's now since been named. So all of those experiences play into how I've experienced an ostomy. And I know there's a lot of different Black people in the world, and we're not a monolith, and we don't all have one experience. So I just wanted to name that. For me, there was this, Tina talks about this named stigma in her community. For me, the absence of stigma was also harmful, the absence of anything. So not being represented as a patient, not being represented or knowing about representation in research. No one said anything. It was if you want to talk about it, you can. If not, we'll just keep it a secret. So when nothing is named, then all you have is how this has been presented to you in society and in culture. And so for me, it was the only people I'm seeing on pamphlets are old white men. I don't know how I got an old white man disease. That's what I used to see all the time. I'm how did this happen to me? And so I was also around 24, 25 when I was told I had to get my ileostomy. I was also just got engaged. So I had to get my ileostomy in March or May, and I had gotten engaged that previous December. So I was trying to put it off, that same stigma of this is going to be ugly. This is going to be nasty. I haven't seen anyone who looks like me and any of the pamphlets and any of the research. So my doctors, I have great physicians and great surgeons who were open to hearing my cultural piece. And they were the ones who pushed me, like, you will not be here to get married next year if you do not get this. And of course, it had nothing to do with my fiance, now husband. We've been married for we've been together for 14 years. We just celebrated 11 years. Had nothing to do with him, but it was all of the messages I've received. And then when things are not named and when you are not represented, you don't know where to go or what to do for support or community or even a cultural relevance to how your life is going to look with this. So I did see other pamphlets of people thriving and of what it looks like afterwards. I saw bags, but none of the bags matched my skin tone. None of the people in those pamphlets looked like me. They in age and socioeconomic status and how they wear their hair, how they show their style. Like, so for me, it was like these unspoken messages that you're still not in this community, or this is still something that you shouldn't be going through. So therefore you need to hide it. So that's how I initially took in those messages. But my family was very supportive, of course, my friends. But those outside messages and just not being represented in society are the things are your recorder tape for how you see the world and how you think you're going to interact in the world. So that was my experience. I ended up hiding for 5 years of just like close people knew about it, but no one brought it up to me unless I brought it up. No one, like, I did not want to be known as an ostomate.
Yeah.
At that time.
And that lack of representation, I'm sure, was so difficult, especially when you're trying to adjust to something that is,
like, so
difficult anyway.
What to wear, all of that. So, and I can also say, I hate that I lost those 5 years of talking about it. I don't have any pictures really with it because my life did get so much better. I'm able to travel. I have a great community of other ostomates and other patients that I've met now. One who's on here, Ashley, like, there's so many just different experiences that I wish I had sooner and that I needed sooner because of that as well. So that was my, my experience. And so.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And your colleague, Ashley, is also from COGI, so the color of gastrointestinal illnesses. Ashley, we will go ahead and bring you out and you can add to the dialogue here.
Sure. So I am what you call like a backwards patient, right? So I originally got my colon removed first. We thought that was going to work. And I had to do pelvic floor therapy because I have an unbalanced pelvic floor. So I really was not able to go to the bathroom. And then we found out I just have a colon that just does not want to work by doing a SIT-SMART test. And that's how we found out my colon didn't work. And so after we did all of that, got my colon removed, it was working for about 6 months, and then I can't go to the bathroom again. So unlike most ostomates, I asked for my bag. And I asked for my bag before I got my colon removed because I literally told my surgeon, if we do not give me the bag now, I will be back. I don't know if it was God, I don't know what it was, but I knew that removing my colon was not going to solve my issues. I needed the bag. I had done all of my research. I knew what I would be up against. And I was one of those patients that said, hey, I know what I need. This is what I need. And my surgeon was like, no, you're so young. I was about 26 when I first got my colon, 26, 27 when I got my colon removed. And so my surgeon said, no, you're so young. Like, we don't want to do that. This is going to work. And 6 months later, I was right back. And then I ended up getting my ostomy. And like DeAndre said, I did not see anybody that looked like me. I was in Facebook groups and it was older white men, older white women, and there were no Black women. There were no Black men in these spaces that I was able to share my experiences with, because culturally it is different. When you walk into a doctor's office, you're not always greeted and given the same, respect that someone that is Caucasian would. And so it almost feels like you have to fight a little bit harder to be seen and to be heard. And so entering into a space where this is brand new for me, I'm young, I haven't even reached my 30s yet, and I don't see anyone like me, is what made me create my brand. is because I didn't see people like me. And I didn't want people to go through what I had to grow through. So I wanted to create that space to show like, hey, you can still live a fulfilling life. I've been married, I traveled the world. I like to put clothes on. I love to look beautiful. I like to go out and enjoy life. And I tell people I didn't start living life until I got my ostomy. So a lot of the things that I do now, I was not able to do because I was in pain. I was having to give myself enemas. I was hiding the fact that I couldn't go to the bathroom. I was hiding the fact that I would cry so bad because I was in, just in so much pain. The other thing that makes my case so special is I did not get diagnosed with Crohn's disease until almost 5 years after getting my ostomy. So I was tested for Crohn's like 3 times, told I did not have it, but I was always told there's a small tear in the lining of your stomach. There's nothing for you to worry about. Well, going 15 years undiagnosed ultimately led to 9 surgeries, which I've had. One of those surgeries was I had to get my tooth removed, so I'm not able to have children. So at 36, I had that surgery at 33. So that's something that comes along with this as well. There's so many things that I think a lot of people don't realize. It's like, it's not just an ostomy. It's being misdiagnosed. It's not having people listen to you. And once that happens, it's like an avalanche of things that comes after that. So definitely being able to be in spaces where I see people like me has definitely helped me be able to navigate, having an ostomy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, and Sharon agrees with you. Representation is so important. Not seeing anyone who looks like me with an ostomy before needing one made it harder to accept. So I love that you and your brand have put this out there into the world, and you're creating content that will change other people's experiences. It's really powerful. Thank you, Ashley. We'll bring out Daniel next to give a little bit of his journey to ostomy and how that intersects with his cultural identity.
Sure. So first of all, congratulations to the rest of the panel, my fellows here. It just shows the diversity, not just in people, but in our stories. Everybody has such a different story. And I hope that people watching can connect, and we're a mirror for you, and hope and faith that things work out when you have an ileostomy. For me, the journey of getting, and his name's Tommy. My ostomy's name is Tommy. And I know, not very original, but I was under a lot of drugs after surgery when I named him. So Tommy it is. And the cool thing about Tommy is that I can just tell my friends when I'm having issues, when I go, I was like, I need to call Tommy, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. So plus we have a really weird frenemy relationship, so it's kind of cool. But my ostomy surgery started after my anal cancer journey. So the complications, well, my cancer was right in my fistula. So when the cancer was gone, which was awesome, it also took half of it. So I couldn't just hold it. I had to wear diapers, and my cancer problems ended like in August of 2015. And unlike Ashley, I fought it. I don't know that I thought that I could reproduce. And like all of a sudden my cells were going to make a new fistula and like a lizard or something, but it didn't work. Just for everybody, it did not work. And my doctor kept recommending, get the surgery. But I fought it from August all the way through January. I didn't want to go through the holidays with a bag. It just seemed, again, culturally. And for everybody out there, there's a couple of different cultures. There's the Latino culture, but there's also the gay culture. And people sometimes forget about identity and sexuality when it comes to anything that has to do with the groin area and anything that happens there. For me, anal cancer and the ostomy. So I'd already been an advocate for years with HIV. And then the day I was diagnosed with anal cancer, I started a video diary. So it's out there on YouTube. Go check it out. Some good days, some horrible days. Talk about ugly crying. You can see the videos out there. But Tommy was born, and this is why I introduced comedy into my presentations. Tommy was born on April 1st, 2016. And for those of you, yes, if you laugh, you know. So he was born on April Fool's Day, and I was like, you're just asking for jokes to happen. And because I'd already done a lot of public speaking about HIV and anal cancer, and it was all in a humorous way, I thought, why not make this also part of the story now? And again, I thought it so much because, like my colleagues are speaking, there was no Latinos. I didn't know who to talk to at the hospital. There was no buddy system. The nurses didn't know. I don't know if the Latino part or the gay part, like somehow something got lost in translation and we couldn't communicate. They barely showed me how to change my bag. The home care nurses that would visit me, it was so minimal the way they would, like, are you okay? Are you eating? Is there an output? I'm out. And like, it was like a 5-minute visit. And the hardest part was I was about 4 years into my relationship with my partner, which we're still together. We've been together now over 13 years. And he was my caregiver during my whole journey with cancer. He put up with a lot because I'm a horrible patient. But we didn't have anybody to talk to. We didn't have other ostomates to talk to. We didn't have other people with anal cancer to talk to. He didn't have a caregivers support group to talk to. Nobody was telling us what to do, how to do. We learned everything by trial and error. And if you're an ostomate, you probably went through these. Like you go out to eat and something leaks, or you're flying, because I fly a lot, and it's like a balloon and you're scared. There's been a lot of mishaps in airplane bathrooms. But I just had to learn. So now, working for Cheeky Charity, and although our primarily demographic is colorectal and anal cancer, I do bring out the ostomy conversation so that Latinos and gay men can talk about it, not just about the cancer, but about ostomy. How does it affect you mentally, physically, and spiritually? How was the relationship with you? And then the ripple effect, how is it with other people? It took a lot for me to be able, because for those of you that don't know me, like I do stand-up comedy, I'm an actor, I do a lot of public speaking, I'm in the public a lot. And I did not want Tommy to be the first thing that they saw when I stepped on a stage. Not that I'm ashamed of my ostomy, it definitely saved my life. I'm a better physical person today, but I didn't want him to take the spotlight. I was getting a little jealous of him because people would see the bag and I'd be like, hey, Tommy, I work alone, buddy. And so it took a lot of trials, wraps and tape and belts and trying to figure out how to make it not so noticeable. So where I am today is I get to speak, I get to be here, I get to celebrate my life. I get to be a source of information for other Latinos in English and Spanish. I get to talk to other gay men about the good and the bad, because we have to be honest that there's a balance of energy. There are positive things about having an ostomy, and there's some things that totally bite. And it's really important to have those conversations. So thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. I'm really excited that we're here today. Thank you.
Wonderful. We're so glad you're here. And some of the comments from JD, as a woman, Latina, and of color for a long time, I was the only one like myself in the room. I love seeing us all up and advocating for each other. Thank you for sharing that, JD. So now I would like to bring out Dr. Nandi just to give us his perspective on these wonderful panelists and their story, and just how this is for you as a medical professional. I know this must be frustrating to hear some of the disconnect that the panelists have experienced. So yeah, just give us your reflections on what you've heard so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm listening intently, and I always learn something different from every time I have a conversation, even with the same individual patient advocate, and new voices that I'm getting to hear today. What I really enjoyed hearing was the diversity of the different experiences, but there's those common themes that we pointed out, right? The stigma is still there. There's also dismissal almost, meaning that there's a lack of resources, and dismissing that there's this huge cultural educational, societal learning curve that's not addressed very well in most conversations preoperatively about an ostomy. So I'm going to step back and say, I'm speaking as a physician, but I realize I'm reaching an audience right now of many patients on this call, right? And so I'm going to speak as a physician of what should happen, and then I'm going to try to give some advice as to what patients and caregivers can do, right? So as a clinician, what should be happening is that a medical doctor shouldn't be deferring to the surgeon alone about an ostomy and all the education that has to happen. Rather, I take it upon myself very seriously in my own clinic to talk about ostomy not as a last resort, because I think sometimes doing an ostomy is life-saving early on. And, you should always try to do everything you can short of surgery. At the same time, there are certain clinical scenarios, right, where if a clinician's recommending it, there's a good reason. And sometimes the clinicians don't have to be honest, the courage to have the conversation, and the patient just keeps suffering, right? And the stoma should have happened a lot earlier. That's unfortunately a common scenario, patients transferring into our hospital. The clinician should also, be recognizing beyond the sterile terms of what an ostomy is, the cultural barriers, right? I really identified what DeAndre was saying. When you look at educational posters, bulletins, billboards, people don't look like everyone else, right? There's and that's slowly changing. Certain companies are changing their advertising, but why that's important in the clinic is to say, I have actually a directory, a private HIPAA encrypted directory, so everyone knows, of ostomy advocates by gender, by age. And it's to help me pair my 20-something, Latino with someone who's like her or similar to her, right? I have my 85-year-old, going to talk, who's going in with a ulcerative colitis with a colon cancer, speaking to my 75-year-old. That's my closest match, right? And I think that really helps. So I think one thing that clinicians can do is offer that and start to keep that type of patient advocate list. They can also reach out to their local chapter of UOAA to find those volunteers, because they're everywhere. Our virtual support groups are everywhere. But as a patient or a caregiver, if you're going through an ostomy or having a loved one who's about to undergo these surgeries, you should absolutely ask to speak to another patient, because I think only another patient, even though they haven't traveled in the same journey as you have, nobody's journey is the same. I feel like as a patient, if you talk to someone who's similar enough, right, or at least has a stoma, it's better. It adds a different dimension than speaking to your clinician who may not have a stoma. So that's something I don't think happens often enough. And then the other aspect that isn't discussed, and Daniel, you kind of touched upon this, is relationships, right? And what I love about Daniel, I love his use of humor, but like you can hear, it makes me emotional thinking about it, but you can hear that, you make light of it, but there's obviously a lot of trauma and emotions and that have gone into your story, but you're able to make light of it and make it educational, right? Entertaining, but educational, but it doesn't lose the poignancy, Daniel, of like the emotions of having the stoma, and also what it may have with a partner. I'm so happy that you and your partner are together and you have such a great relationship. Not everyone's lucky to have that. And so I think that having that conversation with the patient and their partner is really important up front. And so if you're a patient or caregiver, if you're loved, if you're like the mother, father, brother, spouse, a non-romantic partner of a patient about to undergo this, particularly encourage them to bring their romantic partner to those meetings early. I currently have a patient now whose partner didn't attend those visits, and I asked, but there was a block, and it's becoming an issue even after the fact. They talked to an ostomy advocate, they brought their father, but they and their partner weren't comfortable in having the romantic partner involved. So I think that was an opportunity lost despite my best efforts. But this is something that can be worked upon. But I think that there's an onus on the clinician that I work on in the academic space to educate, and there's an opportunity that patients should feel empowered that it is their right to ask to speak to another estimate and to have their partner come along and have these questions answered beyond just the sterile, technical, surgical aspect of things.
What a great idea. And, for those of you that are watching, Max says, yes, cool idea. I wish I would have had that. As a patient, if you're on, as a patient, as an advocate, as a WOCN, as a provider, think about Dr. Nandi's idea here of making a HIPAA compliant patient advocate list that you can match up your folks with, or there is a program that UOAA is offering with matching similar backgrounds for an ostomy friend and an established ostomate. So there's ways that we can get around and make sure people feel supported during this really important part of their journey. So thank you you always have such great ways to address our patients, Dr. Nandi. You're so compassionate with your approach. And Tina had a follow-up question or a comment, I'm sorry, that she wanted to jump in.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. And thank you, Dr. Nandi, for going into all of that. I think there's 2 points that I wanted to make, one about representation and the other about sexuality and intimacy and relationships. Just starting with the representation piece, we heard some excellent points from DeAndre, from Daniel, from Ashley, like everybody has had such excellent points to make. I just wanted to say, one of the things that I've noticed about representation is, and our community says this a lot, is that we're seeing many communities represented on the ostomy front. But when it comes to South Asians, Arabs, we don't feel like our representation is making it out there because many of us are unwilling to show our ostomy bags. And it's not even unwilling, it's almost culturally inappropriate, especially if our families are not on board or our families feel like this is affecting their reputation, that we don't openly show our ostomy bag simply because it doesn't feel respectful to our families and to our culture. And one of the things that I wanted to state here today is I've heard this from many advocates in our community that they feel like we are often excluded because of that, because we are not willing to show that. I remember one time I was passed up by a major New York newspaper simply because I wasn't willing to wear a bikini showing my ostomy bag. So I would just like to make a plea today for any of the ostomy companies watching, for any of the CWOCNs watching, physicians watching, UOAA, everyone on here, that include us too. We don't necessarily need to show our ostomies to show that we are empowered as ostomates. For instance, SAIA has a video going live tomorrow. It's already up on our website, how to tie a sari with an ostomy. I think it's really important to give that space to certain communities where the stigma is so intense that we can't necessarily show our ostomies publicly. Secondly, on the sexuality and intimacy front, I would just like to make a plea that I think we need to also think about discussing the cultural axis with sexuality and intimacy. How do we bring that up to our doctors if they're not bringing it up themselves? And on the LGBTQIA front, I appreciate everything Daniel has said, but these are extremely important conversations that need to be had because a sex organ could be lost in the process. For many of us with fistulas too, it can affect our sexuality and intimacy. And unfortunately, the burden is often on the patient to bring up those conversations. Dr. Nandi does a fantastic job of opening these conversations, but I still feel like in many clinical settings, these are conversations that are just not being had. So patients, let's work together with the UOAA, with clinicians to start making sure that those conversations are happening.
Thank you. Great additions, great comments. Panelists, anybody want to jump on to follow up what Tina said there?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So thank you for that, Tina. You did bring up a few points that I myself, as an advocate and ostomate, have not thought about from a cultural, aspect. So I heard your plea. I will take charge with you to make sure that I raise that awareness for your community as well. I just want to piggyback on the sexual organ being lost component. So I just recently had what we call in the community a Barbie butt, but my product collected me. So I had my anus removed. And that was probably the hardest surgery for me to grow through. Not just physically, but mentally. Because as someone that is openly dating, how do you go to someone and say, "Oh, I don't have an anus anymore," or "Yeah, that hole is gone"? So like how you have yours, mine is it's not there anymore. And it took me 7 months to heal from my surgery, again, not just physically, but mentally as well. And to be able to be in a space to say, this has happened to me, but it needed to happen so that I could have a better quality at life. And so I think a lot of the times, too, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is as ostomates, it's hard to open up when you're dating to say, hey, this is what I'm growing through. I have an ostomy, because now you have to explain what is an ostomy. What does that mean for us dating? What does that look like? And you have some people that are uneducated and they'll say, well, does it smell? Can you still have sex? Can you still do X, Y, and Z? So now not only am I having to open up and be vulnerable with you, but I'm also having to educate as well. And we're on a date. I want to eat my food. I don't necessarily want to educate all the time, on dates, but those are things that we have to think about. And I want to bring this to our community to not be afraid to speak up when you are dating. Talk when you feel the time is right for you, but also give yourself the respect to know if you say to someone, this is what I have, and they don't want to deal with it, it's not a you thing. And I think a lot of times we feel like as patients, oh, it's us. Oh, we're ugly. Oh, this is disgusting. Nobody's going to want to be with me because I have this bag. But let me tell you, as someone that has been married, as someone that has dated, when you are able to be confident, that confidence radiates and other people are able to see that as well. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, I was just going to say quickly, and Tina, thank you for bringing that up so much. Like, you don't understand just the education that I'm like, I need to go educate myself more about this perspective. So thank you. I know you are doing a Diwali conversation coming up, so I can't wait to be a part of that and learn more about that. I also wanted to say on the representation side in the ostomy community, I choose not to show mine. So I don't. Ashley always laughs at me because we're total opposites. So we call each other yin and yang. But I just choose not to show mine, not because I'm ashamed of it, but it's just not my personality. And it's just not something I'm just ready to show yet. But I want people to know also that advocacy doesn't have to be one way. And so you can be an advocate in how you are because there's someone out there that needs to see you how you are. But I've also noticed, and I'm glad that we're breaking stigma and we're showing that ostomates can be sexy and can have fun, but also body diversity, size diversity, because a lot of times where there is more racial diversity, it's one type of body where someone is very fit and a socially accepted norm or healthy body skipping on the beach. And there's so much more diversity, in us. So I love to see that. And I love that there are fit ostomates, and I'm not knocking anyone. But when we talk about representation, the diversity of race and ethnicity, long overdue, but also while we're improving that, improve on body diversity and what advocacy looks like, because you can be an advocate with who you are. There's nothing wrong with, you don't have to change who you are, what you're comfortable doing to advocate or to show other people what life is like and be there for someone else. So that's all I wanted to add to that.
I love it. Any of the other panelists want to make a comment? Daniel, did you have your thumb raised? No. No, you're good. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, guys. So we're going to switch gears just a little bit because I wanted to make sure that we could talk about this important aspect of our subject today. Getting lots of good feedback from the comments on body positivity and representation. Love it. Love it. So our theme for the World Ostomy Day is invisible disabilities. Visible support the global unity of ostomates. So I just kind of want to talk a little bit and have a discussion about this word disability and, and the fact that it is an invisible disability. And DeAndre, I'd love to start with you and get your take on it. What are your thoughts on that label and why do you think it's needed in this community? And I know this is a big conversation and we could spend hours probably talking about it, but I thought given our theme, it'd be a nice introduction to start the conversation.
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for opening with that. So just a brief update is that I focus on, with the SEEN Society, invisible disabilities in the workplace, because that's where a lot of my trauma and challenges took place after coming back from my ostomy surgery. I also have hidradenitis suppurativa. And so it was also causing, you can't see it where mine are, is under my arms, and other areas that you cannot see. So I would always have to put like a cushion or something under it. But I could go to work and people would not know that this was happening, but it was affecting what I needed to be successful. And so I realized, I'm like, all of the career advice, all of this advice about even Black women in careers and all of these things is missing this key piece about me having a disability that people cannot see. And I struggled with the word disability for a long time. I was not like Ashley. I fought my bag tooth and nail. Until everyone had to sit me down and was like, you will not be here, I was trying to fight that bag. And so for me, I had to do work on what I envisioned as a disability because I didn't see it. I was like, no, well, I can still do these things. I'm not disabled. But really, when I look at the definition, a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movement, senses, or activities. So if we take away, and just by definition, if we take away all of the negative connotations and what we see when we hear the word disability, that was my truth. I did have a condition that limited my movement and what I needed in some sort of way. So that is where I was like, oh, and this invisible. So you have this thing where on one hand, you're like, oh, I can show up in these spaces and try to be normal. So at work and in other places, but I'm dying on the inside and my body's fighting me and I am exhausted because now I have to put on this mask in every way. And so I wanted to just talk about that more. I want people to know that just because people can't see it, it doesn't invalidate your experience. And it also doesn't mean that you have to tough it out. And I think a lot of times culturally, we're taught to, oh, tough it out. You can still show up. You can still do these things. I mean, it's like, I could, but should I right now? And does it have to be this hard? And so if getting an accommodation or if working with someone, even if you can't do it at work, because I've been privileged to be able to talk about these things at work and people who know me at work know and not have retaliation, but that's not everybody's reality. So I try to leverage my privilege to help other people who don't have it. And so even if you can't find people in your communities who can help you get what you need, because you don't have to tough it out. And the disability label does not mean that you're any less than anyone else. You just have a different need or a different way you need to be supported. But I would argue that as someone who has led projects and has supervised people and is in all of these different spaces, people who are navigating any type of challenge with their health or mental health or all of these other things are a lot more creative, understanding, because we have to do that to be able to live and show up in our society. So it's just naturally you bring that to a space where you're working in. And so that's my take on it, is that invisible disability. Don't try to fight through it if you need help, just to tough it out. You're not your condition. You're not your diagnosis. And if you need the help, if you need accommodations, if you need a community, get it. Don't do this alone and in isolation. So that's what I have to say to it. But I would love to hear other people's comments or thoughts if we have the time.
We do have the time. Thank you. Really well said, DeAndre. I know it's a multifaceted, conversation, and every body is different. And so I love that you're empowering people to speak up for what they need, in that situation. Any other comments from our panelists about the invisible disability?
So for me, being a Black woman in corporate, being the only Black woman sometimes on teams where you have to lead projects or where you're, leading, just anything huge at work, it often makes you feel like I can't be sick. I can't take time off because then again, we're already up against being Black, being a woman. So I already have two things against me. And you add in having a dis-ease or a disability that no one can see, because when they can't see it, they don't think that it's real. And so you're now having to basically fight for something that is there to tell other people. And I think a lot of the times that when we're in those spaces, especially in corporate America, we're fighting 10 times harder just to, so our 150% is sometimes 20% of somebody else. And so we're almost fighting ourselves and fighting harder just to be represented, just to show that we can get the job done. So when you add a disability on top of that, it's almost like you're in the matrix, because you're trying to fight through what you have physically going on but still show up at work. Like, I cannot look sick at work because looking sick means I'm weak, and so you don't want to do that. And so what you do is you fight your body. And again, when it's a disability that someone can't see, it's almost non-existent. So if you say I'm tired, and us, having our IBD, IBS, having ostomies, that you can get tired and fatigued at any given moment. Or if you're experiencing brain fog, having to explain that, hey, I have brain fog because of X, Y, and Z. And so being at companies where they understand, I think, does help us a lot as patients. But like DeAndre said, everybody doesn't have that. And so just being able to advocate for yourself and knowing like the type of accommodations that you're able to get, knowing that you can take, FMLA, knowing that you don't have to disclose why you need to take FMLA, or, being able to take time off if you need to get infusions, because at the end of the day, I didn't realize I had a disability, honestly, until I was diagnosed with Crohn's and I saw it on a piece of paper. And that's when it hit me like, oh, wait a second. No, you really do have a disease. And it didn't hit me again until I had to get a handicap sticker, because I was in flare so bad that I was hunched over trying to walk. And if it hits us, like this as patients, you can imagine with someone that doesn't deal with it, what they're thinking. So I just want us to make sure like we're advocating for ourselves in all spaces.
Well said. And if you need resources, if you're a patient and need resources, Koji has some on their website. UOAA has some, and then we have also partnered with the Hidden Disability Sunflower Organization. There's some conversations there about how to get more support around disability. We're going to switch gears again. Daniel, you're one of my favorite people when it comes to this topic and storytelling, and the power of storytelling and what that does for stigma and representation, and the way that you use humor in your storytelling. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit about how you think that helps your overall mission to bring more light to this part of our community.
Sure. And I want to start this by quoting a lyric. If you know the song, you know the song. You can sing it for the rest of the day if you want. There's some sad things known to man, but ain't too much sadder than the tears of a clown when there's no one around. And that was one of those songs that I used to listen to a lot. And if you know the song, I hope it resonates in your head for the rest of the day. That's my love. But that's what storytelling was for me, is that coming from HIV for 14 years before I was diagnosed with cancer, and then a year later with ostomy, and having had the disability. I was actually diagnosed with AIDS, so I had the disability label. I felt like it was on my forehead, like a scarlet letter that everybody knew, and nobody knew except the people around me. And Tommy came to be that, and this is why storytelling became so important to me. And it was to take control, to be ahead of people's beliefs. I believe that. Let me say this, because my thoughts. I believe that once you're an advocate, you're always an advocate. And when people know you're an advocate, as Ashley was saying, like, I really don't want to talk about Tommy when I'm sitting at the table having my tacos and carne asada. Like, please don't talk about it. Like, this is not the moment. But sometimes when there's new people and they know or they recognize me for some reason, the stories have to come out. And I learned many years ago in my public speaking that people will remember what you said a lot more if you make them laugh than if you make them cry. And I've always been a little bit of a smart ass, so I've always added jokes to mine. So this goes out to my 5th grade teacher, Miss Marcus. See, my jokes did finally pay off. And but storytelling for me was taking some kind of control over the situation. I had no control over the cancer. I had no control over how the cancer was taken away. I had no control over the fact that I needed an ostomy. There were so many things in my life that were out of my control. And being able to tell my story in my way, with jokes or serious, or Dr. Nandi said, yes, there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of pain. There's frustration. There's days when Tommy does not want to cooperate, and I'm on my way out the door and I have to wait because I have to go to the bathroom again. And it's just like, Tommy, like, really, dude, like, we're already running late. And I feel like I have a toddler that I'm living with the whole time. But storytelling, and I'm going to tie this to the last conversation about advocacy. Your advocacy is your storytelling, and you get to choose how you tell your story, whether it be on a large thing like we're doing here, it could be a campaign. You don't have to show your bag to everybody to advocate. It can be a conversation. I swore that I was never going to take my shirt off when I had my surgery, but when I celebrated 2 years, I had a photo shoot, and I displayed Tommy, and I even wore some wings. The pictures are out there on Instagram. Go look for them. And the Men Up to Cancer Gathering of Whoops retreat that was just a couple of weeks ago, we took a picture. There was like 15 men with ostomies in this picture without our shirts on. And there was such comfort in being surrounded by these other men and just taking our shirts off, when I would not do that alone. Alone, like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I take my shirt off. First of all, my religion was like, Diosito te está viendo. God's watching. So don't, like, and then I hear my mom in my voice, who passed away. She's like, you better put that shirt back on. So, but that's, I'll close with this. You out there watching us, you choose how you advocate. You choose when you do it and who you do it to. And own your story. It's not all going to be marvelous and successful, and there's going to be tragic parts in it, but it's yours. And I own mine, and I make butt jokes because I had endocrine cancer, and I deserve to make as many butt jokes as I want to. I make Tommy jokes because I can, but then it's when to step back and just be an observer and go, I don't feel like talking about it today, and that's okay too. We don't always have to wear the advocacy hat, and that's part of the game. We own that. So thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Great segue. If anybody from the panel wants to leave us with kind of their parting words or any suggestions about advocacy or owning your story or the representation we've been talking about, or even just something for a new ostomate that is scared and feeling isolated. Any parting thoughts from our panelists?
I'm happy to jump in, Amy Lee. So, I love this whole conversation. You know me, I'm always talking about owning your Crohn's, owning your ostomy, owning whatever chronic illness you might have. I think it's a process, though, to get there, and that it's okay if you're not there yet. And it's important to give ourselves grace. it took me a long time to really start owning all my illnesses and my ostomy. And I think it took a lot of reflection. I think it took a lot of spirituality. It took a lot of me rebuilding my self-confidence again. And it's okay for that to take some time. It's okay to attend support groups. It's okay to talk to your therapist. And if you don't have one, it's something definitely worth looking into. And there's resources on that through the Rome Foundation, as well as Psychology Today. I think it's really just important to reflect within yourself and see, is this something you want to talk about? And if not, that's okay too. But it is a process of sometimes grieving, of sometimes, just pushing through all the difficult times, that ugly crying that Daniel mentioned as well. It takes a lot of that. And sometimes it takes a lot to come to a point where we can accept our illnesses, accept our, potential disabilities, and also accept our ostomy. And I just wanted to say it's important to give ourselves grace.
I didn't want to. I'll go just next and really say, like, during last Equity in GI, Ashley and I did a panel about grief and gratitude. And I didn't know, writing that proposal and doing that would be the theme that I've just been living with. It was just the perfect name for what I've been living with and finally being able to name. But there's all of this messaging, like, especially for new ostomates, like, oh, you should be thankful you're still here. And this saved my life. And it did, but you can still make space for grief. And it's always the balance, and it's okay. You're not thankful or grateful because you're having a bad day. You're having a bad day. Give yourself space, give yourself time to grow. And remember, it's always that balance. So that's what I would say is, like, you don't have to rush to be okay and have to rush to make content. You don't ever have to make content about it. You don't ever have to talk about it if you don't want to. Balance your story with your own grief and gratitude and make space for both. And it's okay.
I love what you just said there, Deandra. I thought that was such a beautiful and, real truth there. Like, it's okay to feel how you feel, right? And that's it. At the end of the day, it's okay to feel how you feel. It's important to express how you feel, and it's important to take advantage of the community that's been cultivated here. UOAA has brought us together, right? But there's a large community. We have 1 million ostomates. That's a lot of ostomates in this country. So we have a large community. I think I always try to stay as quiet as possible in these, because if you can't tell, I know how to talk. All right. So I try to be quiet, because I always feel, and Tina's heard me say this before, I truly feel the most important voice in the room is the patient voice, and so it informs everything I do. So I encourage everyone, if you're a patient, you're a caregiver, you're a partner, use your voice, speak up. It is your right. I know in the clinic room and when you're in the healthcare setting, trying to get professional resources, it can be intimidating. But, when the doctors don't give clear answers, sometimes, I'm being stereotypical here, but it's true. Sometimes they're intimidated by their lack of knowledge, right? And so they don't want to admit that sometimes, right? And so you can speak up and say, I need this resource, right? I need this, I need access. Use that voice and take to heart, replay this entire conversation we've had today. This is actually one of the best conversations about ostomy that I've ever been a part of. So thank you again for having me.
Thanks, Dr. Nandi. Ashley, no pressure. You want to close us out here?
Oh, well, now the pressure's on closing out. I will say that you are the author of your story. So you write it as fast or as slowly as you need to, because the reader will always read at the speed that feels right for them. And so, meaning, this is not a race. Does not matter how long it takes you to get to a point to be okay. You may still be at the finish line while somebody is, you may be at the starting line and somebody may be at the finish line. But what's important is the space in between as to how you both got to the points of where you are. And eventually you will get to that finish line as well. So like everyone has said, please give yourself grace, but write your story at your own pace. because whomever comes encounter with you will encounter you where they are. So meet yourself where you are and be okay with that.
Awesome. Thank you. You're getting lots of love through the comments section. And just wanted to thank you all. Thank you to the organizations that you're representing. Again, SAIA, which is the South Asian IBD Alliance, Chiki Charity, and Koji, Color of Gastrointestinal Illnesses. Our panelists have all been amazing. You are just a pleasure to work with, and I learned so much from each and every one of you. I look forward to working with you in the future. I want to thank again our Hollister sponsors for this great program, and also the behind the scenes team here at UOAA, Steve Van Dievender and Ed Fuller. I also want to thank a very special friend of ours from Tokyo, Japan. We had a recorded interview with her a couple weeks ago, and she's on the call tonight. Sorry, it's her time tonight. She's in, I think it's in the middle of the night in Japan. Yuri Nakajima. She is just such a light coming from Japan. She has such a big heart and such a big mission, and I saw her comment. So if you haven't seen that interview, please check it out. It was a fabulous one. So some outreach and resources that I would love to leave our viewers with. We have, again, tomorrow our celebration of World Ostomy Day. We have lots of different events that you can attend. Listening to the panelists has been really inspiring about sharing your story and being an advocate when that feels right to you. And what better day than an Ostomy Awareness Day? And maybe you start small with just telling someone you haven't told before. But every little bit counts when we're trying to get awareness around ostomy. Please tag us if you do decide to share on your socials. You can tag World Ostomy Day or the UOAA, Invisible Disabilities. And then something urgent that's a little time sensitive. Many of you know, if you're living here in the United States, that we are trying to protect our access to ostomy supplies. So if you can, before you step away from your computer today, you're going to go to our ostomy.org website, take action, and you can contact your member of the U.S. House of Representatives and urge them to sign on to a congressional letter to CMS stating that they should not move forward with including ostomy and urological supplies in the Medicare competitive bidding program. So the deadline is actually today, this afternoon. So we would really love for you to get on and sign that letter if you can. If you're interested in more of our advocacy initiatives, you can join our advocacy network where you get alerts from the UOAA with current events that are happening that we need your support. You can always donate, of course, to UOAA if you enjoy the webinar series like Ostomy Academy and other resources that we have. You can do so. We can put that in the chat there. And that being said, I'd like to sign off now and wish you all a happy Ostomy Awareness Day tomorrow. And we will see you in 2026 for our next Ostomy Academy sometime in the early part of the year. So thanks, everyone. Thanks again to our panel.